There is a moment deep in the night when the world changes, when the noise of the day fades and a heavy stillness takes its place. The streets outside are silent, the wind no longer moves, and the darkness feels thicker than before. It is a silence that presses against the walls of your room, a silence that listens and waits. You can feel it in your chest, in the slow rhythm of your heartbeat, in the uneasy way your breath fills the air around you. This is not an ordinary kind of quiet. It is the kind that feels alive, the kind that watches you from corners where the light cannot reach. There are stories told for centuries about this hour. Stories whispered in fear and disbelief. Stories of people who saw things they could never explain. Some call it superstition, others call it truth. But everyone agrees that something changes when the clock strikes 3, the devil's hour. It is the moment when the world stands between dreaming and waking, when reality feels fragile and uncertain, when the unseen begins to stir and reach across the thin wall that separates us from it, is the time when footsteps echo down empty halls, when whispers rise from the dark, when shadows seem to move with purpose. It is the hour no one wants to face alone, because deep inside every heart there is a small voice that knows this hour does not belong to the living. It belongs to something else, something that waits patiently for the silence to deepen before it begins to move. 3 a.m. is known as the devil's hour. The moment when reality feels fragile and uncertain. It is the time when silence becomes alive, and the world around you feels like it is holding its breath. You can feel it in the air, a strange energy that makes your skin crawl and your heart beat faster. It is not just the quiet that haunts you, it is what the quiet hides. The shadows seem to stretch further than they should, and every sound, no matter how small, feels louder, heavier, more personal. Some people wake up at this exact hour without knowing why, their mind alert, their body frozen, as if something unseen has called their name from the darkness. It is the hour when dreams blur with reality, when the night feels endless and you start to wonder if you are truly alone. The more you listen, the more you feel it, the weight of something ancient, watching, waiting, moving closer in the silence that never feels empty. The silence before the knock is never just silence. It is a living thing, breathing in the corners of the room, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. It is the kind of quiet that makes your chest feel heavy and your mind race with thoughts you cannot control. In that silence, you start to hear the small details you never noticed before, the hum of electricity, the faint creak of the floor, the soft whisper of the wind outside. But beneath it all, there is something else, something that does not belong. The silence stretches on too long, too deep, and it begins to feel wrong, like the calm before a storm that you know is not natural. You sit there frozen, listening, and every second that passes feels slower than the last. You try to convince yourself that nothing is there, that it is all in your head, but deep down you know better. The silence has a weight to it, a pulse that beats in time with your fear, and in that moment you realize the quiet is not empty. It is waiting, it is watching, it is listening for the first sound you make. The mysterious knock always begins softly, almost gentle, like a question whispered through the dark. It is the kind of sound that makes your body freeze before your mind even understands why. At first you think it is nothing, just the wind or the house settling, but then it comes again, louder, more certain, more deliberate. Every knock feels closer, sharper, as if whatever is behind the door is growing impatient. Your heartbeat starts to echo in your ears. Your breathing quickens and the air around you feels thick, like something unseen has entered the room. You want to move, but you cannot. Every part of you is trapped between fear and curiosity. The knock continues, steady and rhythmic, not random, not human. It sounds like a pattern, a signal, a call that only you are meant to hear. The walls seem to vibrate with each strike, and the shadows begin to tremble, as if they too are afraid. You start to notice how the sound crawls into your mind, repeating itself over and over, until it becomes all you can hear in that moment. You know it is not just a sound, it is an invitation, a demand, and the longer it continues, the more it feels like it is not knocking to come in, but knocking to be noticed. Fear and curiosity live together in the same corner of the human mind, both fighting for control in moments when the unknown stands too close. You feel it when you hear that knock or see that flicker in the dark. Your fear tells you to stay still, to hide, to ignore what you cannot explain. But curiosity, it whispers differently. It tempts you. It tells you to look to understand, to prove that you are stronger than your fear. And so you move closer, drawn not by courage, but by something deeper. A need to know what waits beyond the door. Every step feels heavier, every breath louder. The air seems to press against you, like the darkness itself is trying to pull you back. But curiosity always wins. It feeds on that small voice inside that says, maybe it is nothing, maybe it is just your imagination. You reach out your hand trembling, but steady the closer you get, the stronger the pull becomes. It's like something behind that door already knows you are coming. It wants you to come. It feeds on your doubt, your hesitation, your need to see what should remain unseen. And as your hand inches closer, you realize that fear is not your enemy. It is your only warning. But by the time you understand that it is already too late, curiosity has already opened the door, for youth presence beyond the door is not human. It is something that understands how to be almost human, how to sound like someone you trust, how to move like something familiar, but never quite right. It knows the rhythm of a heartbeat, the tone of a voice, the weight of a whisper. But its imitation is hollow. There is no warmth in it, only intent. It waits patiently behind that thin layer of wood, listening to every sound you make, memorizing the pattern of your breathing, the shuffle of your steps. It knows you are afraid. It can taste the tension in the air like smoke hanging thick and heavy. It never forces its way in because it does not need to. It knows that humans are curious creatures. We open doors when we should not. We seek answers when silence would keep us safe. And so it waits, always waiting in the dark, its presence pressing closer. Each time you glance at the door, the space between you and it begins to shrink, not because it moves, but because your thoughts pull it nearer. The more you imagine what might be there, the stronger it becomes. It feeds on attention, on fear, on belief. And the moment you start to picture its face, you have already invited it inside without even touching the handle. The forbidden invitation is not spoken aloud, yet it carries more power than any word ever could. It happens the moment you decide to open the door, the instant your hand touches the handle. It is a silent agreement between you and whatever waits beyond that thin barrier. It is not about the act of opening. It is about permission. The darkness does not break in. It waits for you to allow it. Your curiosity becomes the key that turns slowly in the lock, and with that small choice you change everything. The cold air that rushes in feels alive. It brushes against your skin like a whisper that has been waiting to be heard, and in that moment, the world feels wrong, heavier, quieter, as if something ancient has just crossed over. What stands before you is not chaos. It is calm, deliberate, intelligent. It knows it has been invited, and it steps forward without hesitation. It does not thank you because it does not need to. You have given it what it wanted: entry. Your fear becomes its anchor. Your breath, its rhythm, your thoughts, its language. The room around you begins to dim. Your heartbeat no longer feels like your own, and as its presence fills the space, you understand that the door was never meant to be opened, that invitation cannot be taken back, and now it is no longer outside. It is here. The vanished souls were once ordinary people who heard the same knock, felt the same chill, and made the same fatal choice. They were curious, brave, or perhaps just too trusting. They thought they could face whatever waited beyond the door they thought it was, a test of courage or a trick of the night. But what they found was something far worse. Once that door opened, they were never truly seen again, not in the way they were before. Their rooms were left untouched, their belongings still in place, lights left on, doors wide open, as if they had simply stepped out for a moment. But the silence that followed spoke louder than any scream. Some say they were taken, their bodies consumed by the darkness. Others whisper that they still exist, trapped between worlds, unable to return, completely gone, yet never fully gone. There are nights when their presence lingers faintly in the air, a flicker in the corner of your vision, a shadow that does not belong to you. Sometimes people claim to hear footsteps echoing down empty halls, the same rhythm over and over, like someone searching for the door they once opened, trying to find their way back. Their voices sometimes slip through the static of radios, the flicker of old screens, or the hum of midnight air calling out in tones too faint to understand. The world has forgotten their names, but the darkness never forgets. It keeps them close, like trophies, like echoes of a choice that cannot be undone. The final warning is never loud. It does not come with screams or sudden fear. It comes quietly, softly, like a whisper at the edge of your thoughts. It is the uneasy feeling that crawls up your spine when the world goes too still, the weight in your chest when you feel watched but see nothing. It is the instinct that tells you not to move, not to look, not to listen too closely. It comes from something deep within a voice older than memory, that knows danger before your mind can understand it. That warning tries to protect you. It tells you to stay in bed, to close your eyes, to ignore the sound on the other side of the door. But people rarely listen. They think it is imagination or fear playing tricks, but it is not fear. It is survival. It is the last barrier between you and what waits beyond that thin line of wood once you ignore it. Once you stand up and start walking toward that sound, the warning fades, the silence thickens, and everything around you begins to change. The air feels heavier, colder, sharper. Every light seems dimmer, as if the world itself is pulling back in dread. The warning becomes a distant echo, drowned beneath the sound of your own heartbeat and the faint knocking that never truly stops, even when you tell yourself it does, because the truth is, the warning is not meant to scare you. It is meant to save you, but only if you listen before it is too late. And as the final seconds of 3 a.m. begin to fade, the weight in the air starts to lift. The silence slowly cracks open as the first breath of dawn touches the horizon. The shadows that once stretched across the room begin to melt into the corners. The world exhales as if it has been holding its breath all night, and for a moment, everything feels normal again. The soft hum of the city returns, distant and fragile. The wind stirs against the windows, and the darkness begins to lose its grip. Yet beneath that calm there lingers a feeling that something unseen has just retreated, not gone, only waiting, watching from the spaces where light cannot reach you. Tell yourself it was nothing, you whisper, that it was only imagination, that you were half asleep, that the knocks, the whispers, the shifting air were tricks of your tired mind. But the thought does not bring peace. It only deepens the unease, because a part of you knows the truth. The silence that filled your room was too real, too heavy to be a dream. As morning light spills across the floor, you notice how cold the air still feels, how the clock ticks slower than it should, how the shadows seem to pause for a heartbeat longer before fading away, and you understand that whatever came during that hour was never chasing you. It was waiting, testing the boundary between fear and belief. The knock may have stopped, the whispers may have gone, but they are not gone forever. They wait patiently in the quiet corners of the night, knowing that the world will grow silent again. And when it does, when the last voice fades, the last light dies, the clock will turn once more to 3, and the dark will come back to finish what it started.